Hi there, it's a new video on non-chordates. So in this video we'll explain the outline 5 kingdom classification and general characteristics and classification of subkingdom Protozoa up to their phylum as per Levine et al. 1980. Aristotle was one of the earliest to attempt a more scientific basis for classification. So basically he simply classified plants into trees, shrubs and herbs and divided animals into two groups, with RBC and without RBC. And then in the period of Linnaeus, so what he proposed is a more scientific classification scheme. That's a two kingdom system. So one kingdom is Plantae and another is Animalia. And then because there are several shortcomings of the earlier two classification schemes, Whittaker in 1969, so he came up and he proposed a new classification scheme that is called five kingdom classification. So this is called five kingdom classification because in this classification scheme there are a total of 5 kingdoms. So those kingdoms are Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae and Animalia. I have listed the main criteria of the classification used in his scheme as characters. So these are the characters you can see, for example, cell type, cell wall, nuclear membrane, body organization and mode of nutrition. So as you can see, excepting Monera, other kingdoms like kingdom Protista, Fungi, Plantae and Animalia all are eukaryotic. Only Monera is prokaryotic. This is because in case of Monera the nuclear membrane is absent. So nuclear membrane is absent in case of Monera, and in case of other kingdoms like Protista, Fungi, Plantae, Animalia, they all have the defined nuclear membrane. So this is a major difference between Monera and other kingdoms. Then come to the cell wall. So Monera, they do have cell wall. However, their cell wall is non-cellular and it is composed of mainly polysaccharide and amino acid. But in case of Protista, so they may or may not have cell wall. So it is either plus or minus. It depends upon which member you are talking about. And then in case of fungi, their cell wall is present. However, that is without cellulose. So this is a major difference between the structural composition of the cell wall between fungi and Plantae, because both of them have cell wall. However, in case of Plantae, the cell wall is composed of cellulose. Now come to the Animalia. So in case of Animalia, the cell wall is altogether absent. And then the body organization. So in case of Monera, it is cellular. That means a single cell performs all the vital functions. Same for Protista. However, in the fungi, there is little bit advancement. That is, they are multicellular and composed of loose tissue type structure. And in case of Plantae, they have a tissue organ system organization. And in case of Animalia, it is tissue organ or organ system type of organization. Now come to the mode of nutrition. So that means how they feed. So in case of Monera, they are either autotrophic or heterotrophic. So autotrophic means they can synthesize their own food. That means they can perform carbon fixation. But there are also members which are heterotrophic. That means they cannot perform carbon fixation. So for food they are dependent on other organisms. Then the Protista, they are mostly autotrophic as well as heterotrophic. So there is no difference in case of mode of nutrition between Monera and Protista. However, the fungi and Animalia, they all are heterotrophic, so they cannot make their own food. And Plantae, so what they do is they are autotrophic, so that means they can perform photosynthesis. This autotropism is little bit different than the Monera, because Monera can be both chemosynthetic and photosynthetic. So chemosynthesis means they are powered by chemical reactions, and photosynthesis means their mode of nutrition is mainly powered by sunlight. Now let us talk about the general characters of kingdom Protista. So they are single-celled, and eukaryotes, of course, there's a major difference between Monera and Protista. Protista means they are unicellular eukaryotes, and then some species are either colonial, that means they form colony, or they may be multicellular. They may be autotrophs and heterotrophs. As you know, autotrophs means they make their own food. Heterotrophs mean they cannot. And then they are either they have cell walls or they may not have cell walls. And they are mostly motile. Under kingdom Protista, you have subkingdom Protozoa. Now the definition of Protozoa is that they are microscopic and animalcules. Microscopic means they can be seen under a microscope, and animalcule means they are animal-like structure without tissues and organs, having one or more nuclei. So if they have more nuclei, they may be monomorphic or dimorphic. Now they have the most simplest and primitive organization with protoplasmic grade organization. So protoplasmic grade organization means inside the protoplasm all the vital functions are happening, and they may be solitary or colonial, and their body symmetry may be there is no symmetry at all, that is asymmetric. That may be bilateral symmetry. So bilateral symmetry means they have one mid-sagittal plane through which if you cut, the body will be divided into two mirror equal halves called left and right halves, and they may have radial or spherical symmetry. So all these four kind of symmetries are available in case of subkingdom Protozoa. So body may be naked or bounded by a thin membrane called pellicle, and the single cell body performs all the vital and essential functions. Now they have pseudopodia, cilia, flagella as organ for locomotion, or the organ of locomotion can be altogether absent. Their nutrition, mode of nutrition can be holozoic, means animal-like, may be holophytic, means plant-like, or that may be saprozoic, that means they are dependent on decaying or dead materials, or parasitic, with or without oral and anal apertures. And their digestion is mainly intracellular as opposed to ours, which is extracellular. Their respiration may be through general body surface, and excretion may be through contractile vacuoles. You know, the contractile vacuoles are very important for osmoregulation. Their reproduction may be sexual or asexual. So sexual means there will be no involvement of gametes, maybe binary or multiple fission or budding, and sexual reproduction means it may be kind of conjugation in adults or by fusion of gametes. Now life history often complicated by alternation of asexual and sexual phases. The free living protozoa mostly aquatic, inhabiting fresh and sea waters, or may be parasitic. So they may be either free living or they may be parasitic, both. Let us move to the scheme of classification of protozoa. So many scientists have proposed a scheme of classification of protozoa. However, we'll use the classification scheme as proposed by Levine et al. In 1980. According to that scheme of classification, subkingdom Protozoa has 7 phylum. That is, those phylums are Sarcomastigophora, Labyrinthomorpha, Ap Complexer, Microspora, Acetospora, Myxozoa, and Ciliophora. Phylum Sarcomastigophora has one type of nucleus mostly, and their locomotory organs are either pseudopodia or flagella or both. They may reproduce asexually, but when they reproduce sexually, it is essentially by syngamy. Remember that syngamy is the union of two gametes, and this phylum includes 3 subphyla, right? So the important example is amoeba, that you can remember. Next phylum is Phylum Labyrinthomorpha. So they form a kind of slime nets which are fungus-like, looks like fungus, and they are mainly known for attacking sea grasses. Now most inhabitants, they inhabit the marine and estuarine water, and their trophic stage having ectoplasmic network with spindle-shaped or spherical non-amoeboid cells. They live as a collective spindle-shaped cells within an anastomizing web of slime tubes, right, which are formed by specialized organisms called bothrosomes. So this organism is very crucial for them. They may be saprophytic and parasitic on algae when you consider their mode of nutrition, and their zoospores are produced by most species. So the example is Labyrinthula or Labyrinthomyxa. Let us discuss now the phylum Ap Complexer. So in this phylum, all members of the species are parasitic in nature, which is very important, and they have a special organ called apical complex that actually, and that is why the phylum is so named. This apical complex is actually a defined structure present at the anterior end of adult obligate parasites and is the focus of the events of host cell penetration. So we remember that apical complex is important for host cell penetration, and that helps establish the intracellular parasitism relationship. And this apical complex is made up of polar rings, rhopteres, micronemes, conoid, and subpellicular microtubules. So these are the components of the apical complex, and they can reproduce sexually by syngamy. So monocystis and then plasmodium, they are very important examples of this phylum Ap Complexer. Next, Phylum Microspora, they are obligatory intracellular parasites and their spores are unicellular. This spore is with simple or complex extrusion apparatus. So remember that the spore of my Phylum Microspora bears this extrusion apparatus that is important for host penetration, and the mitochondria of the Phylum Microspora are absent in the spores. The important examples are like Nosema, and then you have Barkia, etc. This is interesting to note that again the members of Phylum Acetospora are all parasitic, and in most of the cases the spores are multicellular. So these spores have one or more sporoplasm and without polar capsules or polar filaments. Example is, so this is very easy to remember, Paramyxa. We'll move to Phylum Myxozoa now. So all species are again parasitic and the spores are of multicellular origin, each spore with 1, 2, 3 or even rarely more valves they bear. Example is Myxidium. Finally, the Phylum Ciliophora. So most of the species are free living and some are commensal and some may be parasitic, and a large numbers are found as symphorions. Here the organism carried by and often dispersed by its host. So as you know, commensal means it's a biological association between members of two different species where one organism is benefited and the host may so neither harmed nor benefited. And then the members of Phylum Ciliophora have simple cilia or compound ciliary organelles. Nuclei are of two types, that means dimorphic, and they have presence of typical contractile vacuoles. So they must have a contractile vacuole which is important for their osmoregulation. Nutrition is heterotrophic, so that means they are dependent for the food on some other organisms. And the members perform asexual reproduction by transverse binary fission, but budding and multiple fission also occur. However, in case of the members of Phylum Ciliophora, the sexual reproduction involves conjugation, autogamy and cytogamy. So as you know, in case of conjugation, the two different mating types, they conjugate with each other and exchange nucleus, and in case of autogamy, the gametes are actually produced by the same individual, and in case of cytogamy, so here it's a type of self-fertilization. Of course, here two organisms join together but do not undergo nuclear exchange. That's all for now. If you like this video, please put a thumbs up, like my video, subscribe my channel, and bear with me for more upcoming videos. Thank you very much.